So,
You know what? Can I just real quick?
sure.
When I woke up this morning, I was like, I watched that video of Macron, condemning other nations, and I almost cried happy tears because I was like telling my kids, I was like, it's so great. He's just losing it. He's so upset. They have all this gold. They have their fourth on the tier of like gold reserves. I'm sorry, does gold come from France? No, it doesn't. So
No.
yeah, I'm so just excited. I was always a big Thomas Sankara fan, and I loved what he did in Burkina Faso. Oh, women hold up half the sky. Come on, come on. It's beautiful. I love it. So I'm ready to talk about that whenever. I just wanted to say that was
Okay. All right.
on my
So
list this morning.
I'm gonna do my first story. The France story. Sorry, the African and France story is gonna be right afterwards. I'm gonna go over this first story really quick because this is very important. But I also want to go over that France story because that one is just I can't wait. So, but we're gonna warm up with this first story. So 1,4-dioxane. So 1,4-dioxane is a chemical that is used in the processes of making certain things. It could be used in detergents. It could be used in like soaps, things like that. Well, unfortunately, 1,4-dioxane is actually in our water here in Florida, as well as in the United States. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Nothing. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. And so let me go to here. So this is out of the Orlando Sentinel and says industrial chemical infiltrated Lake Mary, Sanford, Seminole waters wells. Few knew, and there was no coordinated response. So this is actually near me. This is north of me. Near Orange, just outside of Orange County, into Seminole County, here in Central Florida. So just going to read a little bit. Let me enlarge this just a little bit so that everybody can see. It says, for years and even decades, tens of thousands of people in northwest Seminole County, Lake Mary, and Sanford have been drinking water containing a toxic industrial chemical at varying concentrations. The chemical, 1,4-dioxane, is deemed likely to cause liver and kidney cancer and other illnesses by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Labeled as a contaminant of emerging concern, it is obscure enough that not even utility managers in the county were aware of it until relatively recently, and some did not know until informed by the Sentinel in recent months. 1,4-dioxane pollution has infiltrated hundreds of feet underground into the Florida Aquifer, the region's source of drinking water. Just one second. If you don't mind, you might need to mute for a second because I think I can hear myself.
Oh,
Hang on.
let's see.
Oh, I can do it if you need. Uh-oh. What'd she do? Uh-oh. Okay.
Mute me. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Quickly mute really quick. So, can I hear myself? Oh, no. Okay. It got fixed. Oh, well. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay. So the contamination has spread out in an area of a few square miles where the utilities of Lake Mary, Sanford, and Seminole County have wells pumping up millions of gallons, according to various investigations. Health research on the chemical drinking water is sparse and dated. Voluntary guidelines for 1,4-dioxane concentrations range widely among states and countries, underscoring enormous and unsettling uncertainty about its potential harm. But public utilities would never want a suspected carcinogen of any amount in drinking water they supply to homes, schools, and businesses, with many officials of Lake Mary, Sanford, and Seminole counties saying as much. So this goes into how, it is basically toxic drinking water within Florida. And so it says it's linked to a defunct factory. Um, so it says the discovery of 1,4-dioxane in Seminole County's drinking water and the ensuing responses epitomizes a national challenge. There are hundreds of poorly known contaminants infiltrating air, water, and food. Even as scientists are able to measure their tiniest quantities, the chemicals remain largely unregulated and unwatched. And this is the point. It says those impacted in Seminole County cut across large demographic swath. These include poor Black neighborhoods of Sanford, upscale communities in the county such as Heathrow, and Lake Mary's big employment centers such as Verizon and Deloitte. It says learning decades ago of a probable carcinogen in their tap water, 3 local utilities responded differently in attitudes and actions. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was show people what this this carcinogen is and how it can affect people. Did you want to include anything, Delilah, before I start with the video? Are you hello? Oh, oops. Sorry. Did you want to include anything before I start the video?
No, go ahead. I'm just gonna mute myself. So.
No. You're fine now because I can't hear myself anymore.
Oh, great. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Is this going on? Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's not linked anymore. Okay.
Well, I mean, carcinogens in the water is a big problem. What is that? Millions of people drink from that.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the problem. So let me share my screen really quick and we'll get into what it is and how it can affect you about 1,4-dioxane.
Okay, so 1,4-dioxane is a synthetic chemical. So it was synthesized. It's man-made. It doesn't exist in nature. And my research, it said it was first synthesized in 1863. Oh. So it's been around a long time. And then the chemical structure is actually kind of cool. I won't put it up, but I wish I had my organic chemistry kits from before so you'd be able to see it. But it's a cyclic ether, so there's 2 oxygens, and then it just forms a hexagon. So it's kind of cool. Yeah. But the reason it's used is it's a solvent or a stabilizer when making other chemicals. So they use it in a lot of things. They don't use it as its own thing. Okay. So you'll find it in things like paint strippers, dyes, greases, antifreeze, de-icing fluids, and also consumer products like deodorants, shampoos, and cosmetics. And you won't see in the ingredients 1,4-dioxane, but what you might see is that it's a byproduct or a low-level contaminant in things like polyethylene glycol or PEG, which sometimes you'll see that as a surfactant or something like something that allows your shampoo to not separate, the different components of the shampoo. And so detergents, foaming agents, emulsifiers, and solvents. So if it uses polyethylene glycol, there may be some 1,4-dioxane associated contamination, but it wouldn't be in there as a separate ingredient.
Okay, so if you go to your bathroom cabinet right now and try to look for 1,4-dioxane, you won't find it.
You won't find it listed
hidden
as a separate item. No.
Okay.
But it is used in combination. It is used as an associated chemical in a lot of the manufacturing. So apparently bench scientists use it. It's used to purify pharmaceutical ingredients. How I first heard about it is many, many years ago, I worked for a company that made filters, like microporous membranes. And they actually used 1,4-dioxane in its manufacturing process. And that.
So have you ever, can you hear me, Delilah? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of this before?
No, I haven't heard of that chemical compound before.
Yeah,
Or-
because I know you were in the medical field, so I'm not sure if you ever had heard of it before, but I just heard about it when I saw this story, and I was just like, what in the world is this? This stuff is in our drinking water, and we have no idea.
Yeah, I will say most of my knowledge that I've acquired over the years has been about, fertilizers and glyphosate, things like that, that
Mhm.
are in our parks and ends up in our waterways and things like that. And that's something that it's a carcinogen as well. So this being kind of unseen or like not really on any labels before is concerning, because it's like, what if it's attached to something, right? It doesn't exist on its own, or at least that's what this woman's saying. So what is being used so much that's creating this, popping up in the water? Like, is it a combination of all these other things?
Hmm.
Is it something that could be solved if we used more gray water? I don't know. I have more questions than answers, really. So,
Yeah, let's continue really quick.
It actually caused a very big problem later on, but we can get to that later. But yeah, so it's found associated with a lot of things, but you won't necessarily find it by itself.
Okay. Cool. Well, not cool, but interesting.
Yeah, right. It's interesting in a concerning way.
Yeah. So I guess, why do we care about 1,4-dioxane in these products? And we'll get to it in a second in regards to drinking water, but why should we care? Are there health impacts associated with 1,4-dioxane? Like, what do we need to know about how it affects our bodies?
Well, so there's two forms of 1,4-dioxane. There's the airborne form, and then there's also the form that is in drinking water. And so they do know, and I just had my notes. Where are my notes? 1,4-dioxane poses a cancer risk when it's released into the air and people breathe it. And this is according to the EPA. That it's regulated as a hazardous air pollutant. So they do have more studies. They do have information on 1,4-dioxane as being hazardous when it's airborne. But it doesn't stay around in the air. It degrades in the atmosphere. And then it's very miscible in water. It's highly soluble, and it's been found in groundwater. And because it's so soluble, it disperses in the water very, very quickly. And
Okay.
it's also very hard to remove. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, so it is once again, the EPA has indicated that 1,4-dioxane is a likely human carcinogen, and it has been found in groundwater sites throughout the U.S. So, they know it's there. They think it's going to cause issues in groundwater, but it's kind of interesting. It's also considered, it's on the list of contaminants. I think it's on the 4th list of emerging contaminants.
Yeah.
But then they just finished doing a risk assessment, and their risk assessment says that they don't think there's health risks in the water.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
yes, this is infuriating. Of course it's not. They're going to be like, oh, we paid these guys to say that it's fine. These scientists say that climate change isn't real. Like, it seems like old tactics,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and my thing is like, it's not that big of an issue. Who else said that it's not that big of an issue? Didn't fossil fuel companies say that it wasn't that big of an issue back then?
Oh yeah, they sure did, and they still do.
Like, this is man.
Yeah, I was talking to my kids the other day about carcinogens, and I was like, I think we were talking about aspartame, and there was this big there's kind of like some work against, making sure people were more aware about aspartame and things like that. And, I was like, okay, but you look at the studies, right? Like, no doctor I ever worked with could say definitively this person has a tumor that was caused by aspartame. That just doesn't exist, right? Nobody's going to say that. But what they did find is that they gave like increased amounts to lab rats, and they grew tumors, and they're dosing them with like, something that's like far exceeds what a human would consume. And it's like, I don't really understand. It's like, okay, so now we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now we're going to talk about this. Now this is an issue. And it's like, none of this is unbiased. It doesn't feel like. And the public is just left like wondering, you know what I mean? What's really in my water? What's really in the air? What's really, you know what I mean? At least people who are conscious of things like that. And so it is so frustrating that it's like a continual environmental racism, and you know what I mean? If we control the water, then we control the populations, and that's all very fashy.
Yeah. I also wanted to add this point by Jenna. Jenna says, but yet the EPA is still claiming there was no levels of concern regarding blowing up the 5 train cars full of toxic FL on the border between Ohio and Pennsylvania back in last February. So Jenna's referring to what happened in Norfolk Southern and East Palestine, Ohio. They also said that there was no concern, and yet people are suffering health-wise in East Palestine and in other places in Pennsylvania, and are even able to smell it all the way in Canada.
Yeah. No, and they're always going to minimize it because they don't have to take the risks. You know what I'm saying? They're going to limit the testing to things that don't alarm people. And, the media is not going to go interview kids who are throwing up, blood or anything. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, oh, it's fine. On to next week's news. Oh, look, the president's on the beach. Like, we don't care about that, And like, people are being actively poisoned in our country.
Yep.
And there's no oversight. And these corporations are so big that when they do screw up and they murder a town or something horrible happens, they just pay it off. They just write a check and don't worry about it. You know what I mean? We won't talk about it anymore.
Yep.
It's a really abusive cycle.
Absolutely. Now we're going to go to if you can taste it, smell it, or see it. So just really quick.
Okay, so this next question, I think it's important to definitely acknowledge, because when we're talking about these really harmful contaminants that are really prevalent in water, you might assume that it's something that you can like see, taste, or smell. Like you might assume, oh, this contaminant might make my water discolored or might make it taste bad. But I'm guessing like that 1,4-dioxane is similar to other contaminants where that's not the case.
Exactly. I looked for the chemical information, and they do have that in, for most chemical classifications. So 1,4-dioxane is a colorless, clear liquid. It is completely miscible in water. So meaning that you won't even see it as, grains of anything. It won't make your water cloudy or anything. The only thing that I read was it has a faint, sweet odor similar to that of diethyl ether. Now, I haven't inhaled diethyl ether recently, so I couldn't tell you what that odor would be, but it is a faint, sweet odor. So my guess is, and that's, in its concentrated form.
Yeah.
So my guess is if it's in your water, you wouldn't be able to tell. Right. And
that's the scary part.
Mm.
That's the scary part. It's like like you could be pouring water out of your faucet and you can have it in there, but you wouldn't even know it. And then by the time you drink it, it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like the forever chemicals, you know what I mean? There and everything. It's like microplastics.
Yeah.
I need a drink.
Yeah. Yeah. We need something clear like vodka now.
I'm sorry. Like, to any sober people, I appreciate you. I think you're wonderful. But like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm getting a high-V, like, just talking about. I didn't even know this was a new thing to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, this is also interesting. So now I'm going to get into somebody made a statement about reverse osmosis in the chat. Let's talk about that really quick, and we'll finish up here.
Okay, so final question. Is there a way to remove 1,4-dioxane from drinking water? We've kind of talked about its prevalence in groundwater and some of the negative things that make 1,4-dioxane problematic. But
Right.
Is there a way to remove it either at the municipal level or with residential filtration?
There's been studies and there have been evaluations done, and the state of New Jersey actually did one that was quite comprehensive. And there is a municipal level treatment that is currently being tested, I believe, in Long Island. It's called an advanced oxidation process. And so it has to do with irradiating with ultraviolet light and then treating with hydrogen peroxide. And according to this study, it is about up to 99% effective at removing 1,4-dioxane.
Sounds like sunlight and peroxide. Oh my God. Sounds like sunlight and peroxide.
Well, I mean, like, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. Like, it's completely, the way she's describing it, it's like, it's clear, it disappears. You can't even tell that it's in anything,
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And like, how would you take that out of a body of like a person? You're gonna irrigate somebody. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, they actually cover that. I skipped over that part. I can give you the link so you can watch the rest of it. I didn't want to do the entire video because it's literally like a 15-minute video. But yeah, this is really interesting. And then they're going to go into also about reverse osmosis, because some people are saying, well, can you just filter it out? She actually gets into this as well.
So it's either ultraviolet light, or it also looks like ozone could be used.
Okay.
Ozone and hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, so ultraviolet and ozone is another way of doing it. So the advanced oxidation process, there's different ways you can do it, and it's very effective. The downside, it's very expensive. It's not something that can easily be slotted into a system that's already there.
Yeah.
It would be something they would have to add into it, which is why there are very few municipalities that are currently using it. Unfortunately, there's also some of the other methods that they evaluated.
So when she says that it's very expensive for municipalities to do it, one of the things that I'm thinking of immediately is, because I had Nelson Betancourt from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition. He's trying to do one here in Orange County, and then Alfeka Maturity, who was from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition. You can use a public bank in order to be able to finance something like this, which actually would be good for the county, even though it's expensive, is absolutely necessary. I mean, beyond that, if we were to have a country where the workers actually own the means of production, and we can actually have these things built, using public dollars, then we should all be able to have these different these types of water treatment centers in all municipalities across the country, so that we can have the cleanest drinking water possible.
I mean, yeah, there's no disagreement for me there.
Yeah. And I have something to say regarding home filtration systems, but We'll get to that in a second after she says regarding home filtration systems.
They talked about reverse osmosis and nanofiltration. Reverse osmosis is somewhat effective, but they didn't actually give a percentage. They said RO in combination with other filtration methods might be better. Nanofiltration, they only got 46% removal. Granular activated carbon, which is probably the most common form of filtration that we run into. This was a pilot scale study, not at the home level, but I think this was using granulated activated carbon at the municipal level. They said that there was 18% removal. So that's not very effective. They said if you use granulated activated carbon downstream of reverse osmosis, it was 56% effective. So those are methods that are commonly used. Unfortunately, they're not great. The other thing they mentioned was something called, and this, once again, they were talking about at a large municipal level, but a synthetic media sorption unit. So they're basically talking about a type of chemical removal called sorption, where you're adsorbing chemicals onto essentially a carbon block. And this was a specific type of sorption unit. I'm not going to get into the brand name here, but it was up to 99% removal. This was, like I said, at the municipal level, it was very effective, but it's something that, you know, isn't in widespread use. So that's pretty much, those were the main things that they've tested and has been evaluated. And unfortunately, it's just not easy to remove from water.
All right. Well,
yeah,
maybe soon there will be some sort of technology, but
yeah. So we've talked about, you know, can a Brita take it out? Probably not. But the problem is because we don't have national standards for 1,4-dioxane, it's really hard to say, okay, we're going to test it, and then we can say it's this % effective. So it's really hard to be able to give anybody a definite, this will do the job.
right.
But we can say that studies are ongoing.
Yeah.
So
I love how in capitalism, it's our problem, the crap that they create that gives us cancer, and how it's so expensive to fix that instead of just preventing it from happening in the first place. It's our problem, right?
yeah,
If you happen to live in East Palestine when they detonated those, you know, trains, it's your fault that you can't move. It's your responsibility to take care. Those people didn't cause that explosion. You know, they're not profiting off of the movement of such chemicals that are highly explosive and dangerous and toxic. So, you know, we don't even have nationalized anything useful for this country.
yeah.
It's always means tested. Oh my God. I had to ask for a glass of wine. Earlier when it went dark, I was like, asking my kid, like, please give me some wine, because you know what I mean? Like, I don't know about this. You just told me about it today. I'm not ready. Like,
Oh no.
just like, you know, crisis after crisis after crisis. I'm so nervous about water contamination all over, right? Because like, when I was at work, I'm unemployed now, by the way, so I don't want to talk about it, but when I used to go to work, I would tell people wherever I was working, do you know where your water comes from? Oh, where do you live? Do you know where your water comes from? And they were like, no. Like, if it's municipal, they were like, I don't have to worry about it, right? Yeah, you do. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter we're just conditioned to think everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. You know what I mean? And then we have people with these horrible tumors. I lost a friend who was 37. And she had cancer. She had pancreatic cancer and died within a very short period of time. She was one of the most sweetest people on the planet. And they were like, what happened? What happened? it's like there's no accountability for the things that people have to go through as a result of corporate interests and capitalism and all of this private sector business that controls our economy. And it's really sad, you know what I mean? Because it's not just, again, like the narrative is like, it's your responsibility, you should be taking care of yourself, you should be filtering your water, you should be doing all that stuff. Why is that our responsibility? We're not poisoning ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We didn't make that decision. We didn't consent to this abuse. And it is very nerve-wracking to know that every day there's something else that it's around potentially killing people.
I mean, the onus shouldn't be on us. The onus should be on, these centers that actually do the contamination.
Right. Like, I'm not going to say names, I know, but yes, they have names and addresses, okay? These businesses, corporations, and CEOs, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they should have, I think the narrative needs to shift higher focus on them screwing up instead of us having to fix it.
Absolutely. And this is something that I want to touch on, and I wrote some notes down because I wanted to make sure I remember to say this. But it seems like to me that if municipal water treatment facilities clean water so well that we wouldn't need home filtration systems, these home filtration companies would try to fight municipalities from making our water cleaner. This just shows how these corporations will push to make our environment worse just to make money off of us. So whenever you see how we need to filter our water more, well, Brita may not like that, or these water filtration systems, or the people who make Dannon Water, Zephyr Hills, or any of these other bottled water companies, they actually don't want our water to be that much cleaner because that means there's no industry for them. Because what if all the water was reversed osmosis at these plants and then clean to the teeth, and then they somehow put back minerals, natural minerals in the water, and then deliver it straight to our homes? Then what? Then how would these companies market to us?
There are places that have like these places that have clean water for their cities, or the places that are able to get their municipalities to extend, their oh my God, I can't think of the word right now, but they're like, oh, I'm not going to work at that building because I am a wealthy politician and that water needs to be clean for me, even though, you know what I mean? Like, their standards need to go and extend to the public's, right? And it's like, there is money to do that. And there are ways, there's a lot of people that argue that, municipal politics is the best way to get things done because it's smaller, it's focused, you know what I mean? There's a lot of good success stories, but like I said, it's like an ever revolving door of crap that we have to deal with. Just as, I mean, a lot of people have full-time jobs, you know what I'm saying? They can't spend so many days down at city council trying to talk to people or petition and get signatures and things like that. But it is possible for us to, kind of take better control of our government. But it's hard, and it's hard by design.
Yeah. So that's what's going on in Central Florida and Orlando. If you guys would like the links to those stories, that's also in the description below. I made sure to put the archived version of the Orlando Sentinel article in there because you guys won't have to go to a paywall in order to read it. But yeah, so